When a lot of people think about playing arpeggios on guitar, it might look like this. Or it might look like this. Technically, either one is correct, but I think that way of thinking actually pigeonholes what guitar arpeggios are and how useful they can be for your playing regardless of what genre you play. I'm Eddie with Guitar Mastery Method. We help thousands of guitar players all around the world, just like you, take your guitar playing to the next level. And today I'm going to be showing you a slick way to use guitar arpeggios to spice up your soloing. When it's time to take a solo, let's be honest, we just love jumping into the pentatonic scale, right? And don't get me wrong, I love the pentatonic scale. It's a great scale, arguably the greatest scale in the world. However, what I'm going to show you is how some small arpeggio patterns, when combined with your pentatonic licks, can actually inject a whole lot of tasty, tasty flavor. So let me demonstrate. So right there when I was playing, I wanted to put more emphasis on the arpeggios instead of playing too many pentatonic licks and then it just getting all lost in translation. But I did pepper a few pentatonic licks in there so you can kind of see that there's a great relationship between using arpeggios and pentatonic licks. And the arpeggios I used stemmed from two very simple, very stripped down arpeggio patterns, a minor arpeggio and a major arpeggio. The backing track follows a 4-chord progression in the key of A minor, the first chord being A minor. So the first thing that I played was an A minor arpeggio, and it looks like this. So starting on the 7th fret on the D string, right, with our 3rd finger here, we play that first note, and then we have on the 5th fret of the G string, the next note, and then 5th fret on the B string, and then 5th fret on the high E string. So it's these notes essentially. That's outlining the arpeggio. But I wanted to make it a little bit more bluesy and kind of less stock sounding. So what I would do is rather than playing this note, the 5th fret on the high E string, I would bend up to it from the B string, starting on the 7th fret here, or sorry, the 8th fret. And I would bend it a whole step. So I would bend it from the pitch of this note to this note. So when you're playing the arpeggio that way, it just makes it sound a little bit more bluesy. Now right off the bat, you might notice something. The arpeggio pattern here fits perfectly into the A minor pentatonic scale. And you're right, it in fact does fit perfectly in the A minor pentatonic scale. That's another reason why it's perfectly complementary with your pentatonic licks. After the A minor chord in the backing track, it changes to a D minor chord. And since it's another minor chord, we can use that same minor arpeggio pattern and we just shift it up to the position so that it covers a D chord. So remember when we learned this pattern, we're going to take that same thing, only instead of from A, we're going to bring it up to D. So that starts on the 10th fret of the low E string. That's where D is. So that's kind of my reference point. So 5th fret on the low E string is A, and then 10th fret is D, and that's basically what I use to find the arpeggio pattern to follow, right? So we're going to start with our 3rd finger on the 12th fret of the D string. Then our 1st finger is going to play the 10th fret on the G, B, and high E strings. But again, instead of playing that high E note, you want to make it more bluesy, you can start on the 13th fret here on the B string and then just bend up a whole step. Just like we did with the previous pattern. And it just, the same basic idea. And that fits perfectly over the D minor chord in the backing track. And now we're halfway done. We just have 2 more chords used in the backing track, and those chords signal the turnaround for when the chord progression starts over. And those chords are kind of right up next to each other. It's an F and an E chord, and they're both major chords. So we're going to be using a major arpeggio pattern. So starting with F, the arpeggio pattern starts on the 15th fret of the D string, and then the 14th fret of the G string, then the 13th fret of the B string, and the 13th of the high E. And of course, same rule applies with the bluesy bending part, right? We can just reach over to this note here, which is the 16th fret of the B string, and just bend that a whole step. So it's doing the same thing as. And so what we're doing is when we start from the F arpeggio, we're going to go straight into the E arpeggio because, like I said, the chords are right next to each other. So what I like to do is to kind of slide into the other one. So I'll ascend with the F arpeggio and then descend to the E arpeggio. Just sounds a little bit more intelligent playing it that way. And if you'll notice, it's the exact same major pattern, right? So the E arpeggio pattern starts on the 14th fret of the D string, 13 on G, 12 on B, and 12 on E. But if you want to bend it, it's 15 on B, bent up a whole step. So I just kind of like connecting the dots like that. And you'll notice the pattern is literally, they're right next to each other, just a fret apart. And if you also notice, the major arpeggio pattern is very similar to the minor arpeggio pattern. The only difference is this note right here, this middle note. So rather than playing the last 3 notes with just our index finger across all the strings, we're going to be playing on the G string. There's that we're going to use our second finger to play that note, right? So the patterns basically, just to recap, we have the A minor pattern, D minor pattern, then we have F pattern, and then E pattern. And just playing them next to each other, you can kind of hear the chords. And that's the great thing about using arpeggios, is they use notes that are perfectly lined up with the chords that are being played. So no matter what, you'll never play a wrong note if you're playing arpeggio over the right chord. And whether you already have an arsenal of pentatonic licks that you love to play over a track, just like the one that we've been using, you can totally complement them with those arpeggio patterns, whether you're using them to like lead up to a lick or just kind of using them in between licks. Or if, let's say, you're just getting started with soloing, you don't really have a repertoire yet, you can literally just play those arpeggios, right? And it'll work. Like I said, you'll be playing the perfect notes every single time if you do that. If you'd like to learn some licks that'll go perfect with this backing track, I'll put a link in the description box to another one of my videos where I show you how to play 3 scorching hot blues licks that were designed specifically for this backing track. Also in the description box, you'll find a link to download the reference material for this lesson. It'll give you all the diagrams for the arpeggios that we just learned today. And if you enjoyed this lesson, be sure to smack the subscribe button and hit the bell notification icon so you can stay up to date on all of our lessons we got coming out. And one more thing, I got a gift for you. In the description box, you'll also find a link to download a free blues solo heat map. This will show you exactly where on your fretboard you can create scorching, red-hot blues guitar solos and how to take those notes and really use them the way the pros do. And that wraps it up for this video. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you've enjoyed this lesson as much as I've enjoyed bringing it to you. I'm Eddie with Guitar Mastering Method, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.